Tenant for life by choice, and the 5 steps to tenant freedom. So many people today feel they have no choice but to be a tenant. However, what if you actually choose this and choose it, and it can be a great life? I'm going to introduce you to the concept of tenant freedom to show you how great of a life it can be. Okay, so what we're going to learn today is advantages of owning versus renting your home, what you need to buy a home, how to be much wealthier as a tenant. That's a cool one. 5 steps to a great life with tenant freedom, the new concept. What is the tenant's RSP, a special vehicle? Do tenants have a Smith Manoeuvre option? And we're going to talk about the growth mindset for tenant freedom. So, first of all, the advantages of owning a home. The main ones, of course, are stability and peace of mind. You've got your own place. You can't possibly be kicked out. You decide about renovations in the yard and how you want to decorate it and everything, or how you want to finish it. You're slowly building equity, and eventually it's going to be a paid off home. So it's kind of forced savings to eventually have a paid off home. It grows in value and is tax free, and it's a leverage investment because you get a mortgage and you only put a little bit in. So there's some good advantages of owning a home. But there are some advantages of being a tenant. First one is freedom. It's easy to move. You can live anywhere. You can move whenever you want. And then you can also, now in the work from home age, you can work from home from anywhere. So you don't need to save a huge down payment. The overall payments are usually lower, but usually noticeably lower. So the rent is usually lower than the mortgage plus property taxes plus utilities plus condo fees and maintenance, all the costs that homeowners pay. So, tenants very often pay 500 or 1,000 a month less than that. You're not responsible for maintenance or repairs. So, the toilet leaks, you just call someone, you don't have to go fix it yourself. It's much easier to take jobs in other cities, which is an interesting one. And studies actually show tenants actually more often get promotions. You can get a promotion in your company, or you can move to a job in another city that homeowners would find really difficult to do. And buying a home can be impossible for many. So maybe this is your only choice. Now, what you need to buy a home, first thing, this to show you how hard it is. First of all, you have a large down payment. In Toronto here, like you should be at least 20% down. And, it's got to save like 150 to 200,000 or more. So if you're out of university, you get your starting job, whatever it is, you got to save up 150 or 200,000. How are you going to save that up? So, and then once you do, you have to qualify for a large mortgage. The mortgage could be 500,000 or a million or more. And you need a high income to qualify, and you need a good credit rating. You have to build that ahead of time. So you need all that to buy a home, but you don't need any of that to be a tenant. Now, generally, you need about 5 times the average income of a Canadian to buy a home. So, average Canadian now makes about 54,000. The recent study here by National Bank and Sean Cooper showing, to buy a home in Toronto, a single family home, you need about 270,000. That's five times what the average person makes. And even a starter condo, 137,000 is the income you need to buy it. Based on the study, average Canadian makes 54,000, so it's like 2.5 times. So it's really hard to buy a home. And RBC recently had a study called, is Canada becoming a nation of renters? And basically, at every age group, more people are renting than 10 years ago. There's been a huge change over the last 10 years to much more renting because it's so impossible to buy a home. And basically, people under 35, more than half of them are renters as opposed to homeowners. So now I'm going to introduce you to the idea of tenant freedom. And so instead of being, I'm only stuck, being a tenant is the only option I can't buy. Let's make it by choice. You can be a tenant for life by choice, and it's a great life. That's what I call tenant freedom. Now, one of the big new advantages, other than what I talked about being tenants, is tenants can actually be much wealthier than homeowners if you do it right. And I'm going to show you that. That's really cool. So now the reason that happens is because real estate growth is a lot slower than the stock market. So, for growth investors, we tend to think of the real estate, the equity you're building up in your home as kind of dead equity because it grows at a much lower rate. And, I've got the stats since 1975. It's almost 50 years. Toronto real estate here has done about 6.4%. Most of the rest of Canada has done less, although, Vancouver's done more, but 6.4% a year. But Canadian stocks have done 9.4% a year, globally 10.1%, and US 11%. So it's far higher growth by going into the stock market. And also, people think of real estate as safe, but if you look at, since 1950, the biggest decline we've had in stocks, our Canadian stock market is down 43%, and real estate in Toronto fell 28%. So it's two-thirds of the downside risk of stocks. So it's not like stocks are risky and houses are safe. It's relative risk, and houses are somewhat safer, but not dramatically. And real estate actually has much slower cycles. So when it fell 28%, it actually took 13 years to get back even, and stocks has never been more than six, since 1950. So now let's talk about the concept of tenant freedom. There's 5 steps to get there. What are they? First one is you save the 20% down that you would otherwise use to buy a home, and you invest that in stocks. So I find people that are trying to buy a house, they save like mad. They even may borrow money from their parents or to get that 20% down. And so here you do that anyway. You save that 20% down, but then you don't buy a home, you just leave it invested in stocks. So even if, you can ask your parents, look, I'm choosing tenant freedom rather than buying a home. Can you help me out with it? So a lot of parents are now helping their kids buy homes, so they can help you with it as well. But like, if think of the down payment you would need to buy the home that you want, save it anyway. Okay, so that's the first one, like save like mad to get that. Second one is rent for less than the total cost of owning a home. So whatever the home that you would buy, that you would otherwise buy, make sure you're renting for less than the monthly cost of that. So then what you do is you live freedom. You rent wherever you want. So don't be scared of the landlord. Rent wherever you want. Okay, then from there, what you can do is, because you've got this significantly larger portfolio, you can actually be financially independent much sooner than homeowners. You can retire early, and there's this whole FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. You can be part of it just because you chose tenant freedom. And then there's a tenant freedom growth outlook that really helps to make this work, because you end up with a lot of investments, and you got to be comfortable with them and know how to handle all this stuff. Now, so here's the kind of surprising thing. I have a chart here that I'm going to show you that. So what I compared is just real estate versus the 20% down. And, if you just take, like, so instead of, buying $1 million property, you need the 20% down. You just take the 200,000 and invest it. So, and what would have happened over the last 25 years? Basically, any time that you did it, the 20%, the 200,000 in stocks over 25 years, typical term of a mortgage, grow to 1.5 or 2 times what the value of the home is. So your home grows in value in that time. You have the $1 million home grows, but the 200,000 in stocks ends up being much more than the house itself. So just the 20% down is, I got to say that again, because people think, wow, the home, eventually I get the paid off home. But if you just take the 20% down, invest it in stocks, after 25 years, you probably have 1.5 or 2 times the equity that the homeowner would have in their home. So let's talk about these 5 steps a bit more. Yeah. So first of all, you invest just the 20% down, you save it up, and you invest it in stocks, and that, over 25 years, it gives you 1.5 to 2 times the equity of a paid off home. Then you rent for less. And if you took the total cost of a home, mortgage, property taxes, utilities, condo fees, maintenance, it's a lot, you can rent for a lot less. Here in Toronto, if you're renting a condo and there's, 2 people of identical condos right beside each other, and one person rents and the next person owns, the person that's a tenant is probably paying $500 or $1,000 a month, sometimes more, less than the person that's owning today. It's huge. It's hugely different. Then the tenant has freedom. You can rent wherever you want. So, for example, you could take the house that you'd want to buy and rent it, or rent something very similar to it. Or you could rent something right close to your work so you have no commute. Or you can rent a place with great amenities, or something that's close to entertainment, or something that's, close to family or friends. I have actually myself, myself and my wife, we have a condo downtown, and it's awesome. It's like close to everything. It's close to all the restaurants. It's right by the lake. And, it's a few steps toward it's, just a couple of minutes to walk over to where the Leafs or Raptors are playing. So we can go over there and watch them lose. So, and there's Mervish theaters, 10 minutes away. So everything is walking range. It's a great place to live down here. And homeowners have all this trouble, that they usually want to live out in the suburbs and whatever. It's a different quality of life you can have as a tenant. It's a freedom thing. Then the whole FIRE movement. So you've got a retirement nest egg because you've started off with 200,000 or something, a big amount of investments, and you're building it up, and you've got it when you're young, and it's you let that compound for a few decades, and that helps you retire really early. And remember, your renting is your cost is less than a home, so you can retire on less as well. And then you've got this tenant freedom life outlook. So you got to have the growth mindset so that you're always thinking about growth, building up your portfolio, the freedom that you get from doing that. You can be open to better jobs in other cities. You can move wherever you want. You can also work from home in fun cities. I remember in the middle of COVID, Barbados was advertising they would give a 1 year work permit to anybody who wanted to work from Barbados for a year. It was awesome. So if you can work from home, then as a tenant, you've got all this freedom then. And then when you retire, you can retire anyway. You're not stuck in, oh, I've got this big house and I have to be here. You can go live wherever you want. So, like we get such high taxes in Canada, they just jack them up more. So you know what? You can easily move to another country. You can move to a low tax country. You can go to a vacation destination and live there, or you can live in multiple places. When you've got this freedom as a tenant that homeowners don't have. Now, the issues that I get when I raise this, first thing is, a lot of people feel that you should buy a home. It's just smart financial thinking, right? It's a solid way to build wealth, and you just should do it. It's what it looks like you're being financially sound. However, with tenant freedom, you can actually have much higher wealth. So it can be way better if you do it right. Now, a home is forced savings and forced discipline, right? You have to make the payments and you have to build up this equity. Like it's forced on you. And that's part of why people do really well. So, this is a caveat here because with tenant freedom, you need to build your own discipline. Okay, so you're not forced to. Like you don't have to build up this down payment. You don't have to rent it for less. It's easy when you start having a certain amount of money to spend more. So you need to have your own discipline to stick to the strategy. Now, homeowners also another issue is homeowners have leverage growth, right? So you're putting 20% down, for example, on a home, got an 80% mortgage. So this is 4-to-1 leverage. And that's the main reason people build wealth in real estate is, even though real estate grows relatively slowly, but you're leveraging it 4-to-1 when you first buy it. And that's the main reason why real estate is a decent investment. However, tenant freedom, you can do something similar. You've already got your 20% down. There's a thing that you can go out and get investment loans. There's 3-for-1 investment loans that you can get. So that's almost like the 4-to-1 leverage from a mortgage. You can do all that, and you could be in a similar kind of position if you want. You have to use non-registered investments then, but you can. But that's always a possibility if that's what you want to do. And then, a lot of tenants, people say, I want to own my home because, as a tenant, they feel powerless against the landlord. What if the landlord just kicks me out? But, with tenant freedom, there's a difference when you have money. So you've built up this amount of money. So you're not, a lot of tenants don't barely getting by paycheck to paycheck. And if they get kicked out, it's a problem. But, it's with tenant freedom, you have the money. You can move anywhere you want. So if some landlord wants you to leave, it's easy to move, right? So you've got the power, and you know what? More often you'll find that it's not the landlord kicking you out. It's you choosing, I've lived in this place for a couple of years. Let's go live somewhere else. You've got the power when you're a tenant, and it's by choice, and you've got some money behind you. Now, where do you invest this down payment, the portfolio, so that you saved up the 20% down that you could use for a home, but you're going to invest it in stocks instead? But where do you invest it? There's a perfect thing. I call it the tenants RSP. It's the new FHSA. It's the First Home Savings Account. It's designed for people saving up for a house, but it is the perfect vehicle for tenants for life. So to use an FHSA, you don't have to have any intention of ever buying a home. For a tenant, it is 40,000 of free RSP room for life. People who buy a home with it, they have this extra room for a couple of years or a few years, and then it's gone. You pulled it out, it's gone. But you get the 40,000 extra room. You've got 15 years to put it in, and then you just move it into your RSP, and you keep that room for life. And if you got a spouse, that's 80,000 extra RSP room that's free, and you leave it in there. It's compounds for your whole life. So it's an amazing place. So the FHSA tenants RSP, it's perfect for the tenant for life. Another thing is, what's designed for the home buyers is the home buyers plan with the RSP. So you can borrow, 35,000 from your home from your RSP, and you can use it for your down payment, and you have to repay it over 15 years. And they say, well, it's free because I just borrowed from there, but it's not free because what you lose is all the money that his investments would have made during those 15 years. That's what you're losing, right? Now for tenants, you just leave it in there. You could do your FHSA, you could do your home buyers plan or your RSP, but you just leave it in there to grow. So you haven't pulled it out, you've left it in there to compound. And then of course the TFSA is a really good place. It's tax-free growth, part of the tenant freedom concept. And you can also invest non-registered, which is just, if you want to do some sort of additional leverage strategy, that's maybe what you'd want to do. Now, another objection I sometimes get is, can't homeowners use their debt equity? So they get their equity in their home. I call it debt equity. But you build up equity in your home and you can borrow from it. Now, some homeowners use it to spend, which is their own discipline problem. They spend the money and now they never actually pay their home, and that's a problem. But some also use it to invest for part of their retirement. So there's a strategy that we've been kind of known for called the Smith Manoeuvre, where you're borrowing against your home equity to invest as part of your retirement. And it's a great strategy. So it's actually one of the best wealth strategies. The Smith Manoeuvre is one of the best wealth building strategies out there, but it's for the right people, done the right way for the long term. It is not for everybody. And you're using your equity slowly as you build it up over time, and you convert your mortgage over time to a tax deductible credit line. So this is a cool strategy that homeowners can use. But what if you're going, you're a tenant for life, tenant freedom? What can you do? Well, you can actually do something kind of similar. So you can just go out and do a separate investment loan. You could do a 100% loan or a 3-for-1 loan based on your non-registered portion of your portfolio. Now, so you can use the lower monthly payments. So if your monthly payments are 500 or 1,000 a month less than it would be for a homeowner, you can use that to make the interest payment. Or if you borrow some money to invest, you can actually you've got your existing portfolio, you can use it to make the interest payments. You could actually use your RSP FHSA, you could take money out of it, and it's taxable when you take it out, but you're paying interest as tax deductible, so that would be an offset. It's a way to get money out of your RSP tax free. So, or you could pay the deductible interest yourself, and think of it as a super RSP alternative. So, for people putting in their RSP, every dollar they put in is a tax deduction. You put 10,000 in your RSP, you get a 10,000 tax deduction, and you get 10,000 in your RSP. However, if instead of that, you did a loan for 200,000, your payments are 10,000 a year, you pay 10,000, which is all tax deductible, but you've got 200,000 investments. So this kind of investment loan can be, it can be much more effective than even using an RSP. And then, the tenant freedom concept, you can use this wealth building strategy like something like the Smith Manoeuvre by doing a 3-for-1 loan on it, on the portfolio that you have, the non-registered portion. So again, this is not for everybody. It's for the right people, done the right way over the long term. But, I'm raising this because people think, well, homeowners have this Smith Manoeuvre option, tenants don't. Well, we do have the various options like that. So now homeowners can go bigger. Usually they can do Smith Manoeuvre and also do investment loan. But, the basic concept is with tenant freedom, you've still got, really good options here. Now, on top of this, it's really what makes this whole tenant freedom concept work well is if you've got a growth mindset. And it's the growth mindset. So I've got like 7 parts of it. First of all, think long term, because you're actually building up a portfolio over time. And, stock market goes up and down, and don't focus on any of the ups and downs. All you have to do is you need investments that you're confident will give you a really good return over, 20, 25 years. So in the stock market has, pretty reliably does that. So you just think long term and just keep going for it. Another really big thing is to have a financial plan. So you're putting money away. What really helps you you got to have your own discipline. What really helps you is to have a plan for a life that you want. So you say, let's say you want to retire early and you want to retire really comfortably. How much do you have to put away to get that? And then this way you're living on purpose. You design the future that you want. You figure out what you have to do now. And so it's doable. You're doing all the right stuff. So you know what your future goes. So I find people that have a financial plan, they tend to stick to it. They make much smarter decisions. They're always thinking long term, and they're just way better off financially than people who don't. It's astounding, the difference, and it's hard to explain to people why it's so much different. But having worked with people that all of our clients have a financial plan, and it's amazing how you see them move ahead over time. So then a third part of a growth mindset is learning the skill of a risk tolerance, of higher risk tolerance. So you go anywhere in an investment and they give you a risk tolerance questionnaire, and they kind of label you as, you're a moderate investor, and you're labeled as it. But you know what? You're not necessarily stuck with that. You can learn to have a higher risk tolerance. And what that means is you got to get educated on the stock market and how it goes up and down, and how far it falls. It doesn't go to zero, but it does fall fairly often and quite a lot. And but it comes back. So you got to get educated on it, and you just got to get used to it, that kind of thing. And then step 4 of the growth mindset is, invest with a higher equity allocation. You got to be within your risk tolerance, but if you can invest 100% equities, that's where you get much higher growth over time. And it's shocking how much difference that is. Having a little bit extra equities. A lot of people worry about a bit of fees, but then they have 20 or 30 or 40% in fixed income in their portfolio, and they lose way more than they save on fees. So this, having a higher risk tolerance is a really great skill to build financial wealth. Another one is to consider leverage. Now, again, there's a lot of great wealth building strategies. I've mentioned some of them here. They are not for everyone. You got to do it the right way. You got to have a long-term focus, but it's something to consider. If you're a really growth investor, it's a great strategy. Basically all the really wealthy people, got there by borrowing to invest. It's really the only way to get into larger numbers. So it's something to consider. Another big part of the attitude is that just assume that all market declines are buying opportunities. So don't even question it. So the rule of thumb I go with is, anytime our stock market investments are down 20% or more, it's a buying opportunity. Forget about what's happening and whatever you think short-term market is. It's down 20%. It's a buying opportunity. Just try to put as much money as you can, or if you're taking money out, try to take less out and just build it up, because whatever money you put in after a 20% decline is almost definitely going to have a higher rate of return than the other money that you put in. It's just always a great buying opportunity. And then the words I learned from a mentor is faith, patience, and discipline. It's this calm confidence that the growth mindset that you can have, faith that it's going to work. You just know it's going to work a long time. So, I don't know where the market's going to be next year, but I know that 25 years from now, it will be between 7 and 17 times higher. Based on history, basically always has been. So, and then patience, you just wait. When it's down, you just wait. And discipline, stick to the strategy, stick to your plan. That's the mindset that gets you ahead. And the one thing I want to show you is that the stock market actually is reliable long term. Like, a lot of people really tend to think the stock market is much more risky than it is, and it is risky short term. It can fall 20, 30, 40, 50% sometimes. However, over long periods of time, it's really reliable. So, I've got stats going back to 1800. And if you look at the long-term trend line, after inflation, it's basically a straight line. The long-term return has been, basically 7% real, 7% above inflation is the 200-year average of the stock market. And you see, in basically any longer period of time, 20, 30, 40 years, you're getting that kind of rate of return. So, and then if you take 25-year blocks, I've got the last 150 years, and basically since the modern stock market from 1930 till now, basically the worst calendar year of the U.S. market, where we have all the data, the worst calendar year of the S&P 500 since 1930 has been a gain of 8% a year. That's the worst long-term period. So if you stick with it long-term, it's reliable, and you got to have that confidence. So. All right, so that's my talk. So what we learned today is the tenant for life by choice, the advantages of owning and renting your home versus renting your home, what you need to do to buy a home, how to be much wealthier as a tenant, 5 steps to a great life with tenant freedom, the new concept. And then we're talking about what is the tenant's RSP, do tenants have a Smith Manoeuvre type option, and the growth mindset for tenant freedom. So thanks for listening. My name is Ed Rempel. My blog is Unconventional Wisdom. It's the #1 blog in Canada for a financial planner. It's either edrempel.com or unconventionalwisdom.ca. Make sure you put .ca. That's because we're in Canada. We offer, if you're thinking potentially working with our team, we offer a free 30-minute consultation. Just go to edrempel.com/talk and tell us a bit about yourself. I've also got a blog, podcast, and YouTube. If you subscribe to them, all it means you get is you get my new videos and blogs and podcasts sent to you by email like once a week. So that's all it means. So we don't market it any other way. The podcast is edrempel.com/listen, and the YouTube is edrempel.com/watch. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.